I think we all know what the director's talking about when he states popular trends in anime. If you've been watching anime for a long time, you definitely know, you definitely have seen it, and it's clear that he's talking about Battle Shonen. He's talking about new anime fans. He's talking about the rise of certain anime in the last 5 or so years. And there's a lot of examples I can outline to kind of showcase what he's talking about, and so let's get into that first. First off, we gotta look at, where this really all started, at least, when anime started to blast into the mainstream. Demon Slayer. Now, obviously, a lot of people are going to point out, like, Dragon Ball was very popular, Pokemon and stuff like that, and yes, they have a place, they are very popular. Not going to act like they aren't. However, we have to admit that anime wasn't, like, overwhelmingly popular and wasn't accepted by pretty much the vastness of the world until Demon Slayer basically exploded and everybody started to talk about it. And then it was a systematic domino effect. Once Demon Slayer came out in 2019, COVID hit, and a lot of people that never would have touched anime, never would have ever given anime the time or day or manga chapter a time or day to read, sat down and for the first time experienced anime and manga culture because they had nothing better to do. They were sitting in their house, bored, didn't really have anything else. There was probably nothing good on Netflix or anything, so they decided to sit down and watch Demon Slayer. And this is a cascading effect. Everything that, came out after Demon Slayer has been relatively similar. Now, obviously, there is some things that stand out amongst the crowd that is different from, let's say, Demon Slayer, JJK, Soul Leveling, Chainsaw Man. Frieren is a good example, since it's kind of what started this conversation. But when you look at the vastness of how popular anime has come, especially in the last 5 to 6 years, stuff like Frieren is a drop in the bucket. It's something that has a very small community or niche community in comparison to everything else. We like to think that Frieren is incredibly popular. We like to think that Frieren is overwhelmingly popular to the same level as maybe Soul Leveling or Demon Slayer, but that is so far from the truth. We are dead wrong. And the reason for this is a recent example from this year, actually, the Crunchyroll Anime Awards. Now, I'm not going to bring up old drama and try to say Crunchyroll rigged it or not, but one of the big indications from that award that showed everyone is that anime fans that typically watch stuff like Frieren, or watch Welcome to the NHK, Steins Gate, Takapi, whatever, we're in the minority now. Most anime fans, newcomers into the genre, typically only watch what's popular, typically what explodes on TikTok or social media platforms, what big content creators start talking about, and then they dive into it. For instance, JJK or Soul Leveling, for instance. And so that's the point here, is that typically, as trends go, what's popular is what's going to be talked about and what these companies are going to prioritize, what they're going to focus on and put all their resources into. And Frieren losing like it did really showcased this, because anyone that sat down and watched it and all the conversation around it, I think heavily agrees that it is one of the best shows in the last decade. It's hands down like in my top 10. It is a great show, so many life lessons, so many things to learn from it. It's fantastic. It is honestly a nice traditional fantasy, stuff that honestly just reminds you so much of Lord of the Rings, and if it reminds me of Lord of the Rings, that's a massive victory in my book. But the point is that obviously these companies in Japan, these Western companies and everything, they have seen how much money anime can make. We've had records being beat back to back over years now to where the Japanese, anime industry is just expanding. There's so much money being funneled into it. There's so much, products being bought by people around the world that it is now a massive moneymaker. I don't know necessarily if it's the biggest moneymaker in Japan, but it's probably definitely in the top 5. If I had to say in terms of merchandise and just marketing and money being funneled into Japan or funneled out of Japan and other people buying from other countries for their products, anime definitely is there. And I think that in general, a lot of these companies, Western companies like Netflix and stuff, have noticed this, and they're trying to dive into the pie, get their slice of the pie, and get a lot of money. And so what the director is necessarily saying here is that because of how the world works and how companies work in general, Disney is a good recent example, since we had stuff like that being called out recently. They're going to chase trends. They're going to chase things that are going to be able to make easy money, which is why Disney has tried to make basically very safe stuff for a very long time with the MCU or their movies. It's because they'd rather make easy money than be experimental and do something relatively unique. Now, obviously, this doesn't always work because Disney is now starting to feel issues from that. I mean, look at their latest movie box office releases and money they're getting. But the point is that it's clear that the anime industry is becoming that. It's morphing into that slowly. With the news with Kadokawa trying to increase production budgets, with Kadokawa trying to basically cater more to the West, it's obvious that these companies are trying to get in line and just become more focused on the global market than anything else, because there's more money to be made. And basically, anime is losing what made it popular to begin with. It being anime, being Japanese, made for the Japanese, and just people that, you know, get into it are enjoying it. But it's clear that anime is now starting to play it a lot more safer, and try to cater itself not just to the Japanese audience, but to an entire global audience, which I think is going to be disastrous in the long run, and it's going to lose the point of why anime became popular to begin with. And so when you have directors like this, for instance, the Frieren Director, outright just talking about the situation, explaining their thought patterns on it, how they don't like the bias towards popular trends, it's not a disgruntled director or animator being upset about this. It's more of an insider seeing where the industry is going, seeing that the industry is shaping into only focusing on projects like JJK or Chainsaw Man or Demon Slayer, than focusing on projects like Toxicity or Frieren. Because let's be honest here, anyone that's like watched Frieren or even Toxicity, one of the recent examples that came out this season, I think we can all agree Toxicity is incredible. Great anime. Like, I think we all, if you've watched it, can agree on that. However, in terms of money it's probably made, it is so minuscule, a drop in the bucket in comparison to what, let's say, Chainsaw Man or JJK can pump out. That it prints money, so to speak. But Toxicity, for instance, won't, despite how much love and passion was put into that project, and regardless of how it is a masterclass of a show, why would any company want to focus so heavily on something that isn't going to sell as much as, let's say, something that's safer, like Demon Slayer? So you can see the issue here. Now, I do want to go on record and say that Battle Shonen has always been popular. I'm not saying it isn't. There's a reason why Dragon Ball, One Piece, Naruto, Bleach, and stuff is incredibly popular. There's a reason for that. But it was still, like I said, a hot pot. There was so much to choose from. But now it seems like that hot pot is getting mixed with only one ingredient, and it's messing up the entirety of the cook. It's just literally one thing. And I feel like a lot of anime companies are establishing themselves or gearing in to only making stuff that's similar to what is making money. So, it's pretty sad, honestly. It just once again shows that anime as a culture and industry is fundamentally changing and changed. It will never go back to what it once was. Obviously, as time progresses, we will see little things that stand out like Frieren or Toxicity come here and there over the years, but it'll become, I think, more and more rarer as time goes on, as more series focus on the same trends that, you know, has been popular for the last few years. It's basically kind of what happens with the gaming community. Like, you remember the whole zombie trend in the early 2010s, and then you had the Battle Royale trend and all that. You know, there's always these trends, and I feel like that's kind of what's happening to anime, but on a more mainstream level, that will have disastrous effects for the entire industry and what studios actually focus on, because there's going to be a lot of stories and series that are going to be basically thrown to the side or just swept under the rug and never focused on, just to focus on something that could reach a wide appeal of an audience. That's what I think the future is. So yeah, I kind of wanted to talk about this. It's very fascinating, honestly, and I do want to show something, honestly, that does need to be called out that is relevant to this conversation, so let's switch to that. So this right here is a clip that graced my feed earlier today when I was, you know, about to talk about this article here, but this clip in question is more or less a good example of what I've been talking about for years at this point, and how the anime community has changed, and you have the used-to-be bullies, people that would bully anime fans, diving into the anime community to change it within. And I'm just going to play about probably 10 seconds of this clip, and you can kind of get a good grasp of what this person's trying to say. So let's just, let's play this real quick.
You own this, you need to be locked up. You ever put something like this in your cart, you need to be locked up. If you see this and don't see a problem with it, you should probably seek some help. Now, I understand this has always been a thing in the anime community, but at some point we have to draw a line somewhere. Y'all...
If I need to point out why this is wrong, I will. Let's explain. I'll make it very brief. These new fans, that used to never care for anime, don't care about the culture, don't care to adapt to the culture or learn why people like anime or manga, they're coming into the communities and trying to force the will of anime and manga and light novels, whatever, to bend to their ideals of what they want, which gets into the conversation of the whole director thing. That these new fans are forcing these studios and animators and stuff to do what they want, this merchandise sells to do what they want, and if they don't do what they want, then they're going to basically, be very upset. They're going to pull a hissy fit, and they're going to, decry it or try to buzzword you to death. And in this case, what this individual does throughout this entire clip is pretty much say that you're a pedo if you, buy figures. Fan service ecchi figures of characters. Yeah. We've gotten to that point. We've gotten to that point to where if you buy a figure of an anime, you're a weirdo. You should turn yourself into the police. That's crazy, man. This is the type of, new anime fans that we've been getting, and it's getting worse. You didn't see this type of stuff, honestly, pre-2020. You might have seen it here and there, but it was so little. It was non-existent. But now, you see this, multiple times a day, which is just sad, man. And a lot of reasons why I think this is happening now, if I had to take an educated guess, I think there's two reasons to this. You have people that obviously believe this and think that it's weird and then people should be locked up for it. I also think there's another side of these clout chasers, people that know that it's going to get a reaction out of people, which obviously it's getting a reaction out of me. And it's going to cause conversation around it, and it's going to, get them clout. People basically are, honestly, this is probably the best time to really say the word, grifting. Actual grifters that are grifting on anime and manga content, saying things that they don't truly believe, just to be able to make as much money or conversation around it. And that's what I think is honestly been going on with this topic, and I think it's getting worse, because you now have a new generation of people that are getting into anime and manga that, are now having access to video recording cameras and stuff and social media to record and put the reactions online. And because you can easily monetize stuff nowadays online, that's what people are doing. They can just monetize these very rage-baiting, obvious things that are just going to piss people off to get as much money as possible. And it clearly works. I mean, there's a reason why you have these prank channels and stuff that do absolutely horrific things, and they keep getting worse and worse, is because people watch them, because people will still click on them. And it's just a really bad systematic effect I've seen getting worse and worse over the years, and this is a really good example of that. But I want to leave it there. Just wanted to talk about this. Thank you so much for watching. Be safe, stay healthy. Chibi out.